Welcome to the Let's Stay Healthy radio show, sponsored and brought to you by Montana Harvest Natural Food Store in Billings, Montana. If you don't spend time on your wellness, you're going to be forced to spend time on your illness. Your health is your most valuable asset. Invest in it by tuning in now.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Let's Stay Healthy. I am Kimmy Oliver, one of your hosts today of Let's Stay Healthy. And this show is also sponsored by Montana Harvest, which is a locally owned and operated health food store that is here in Billings, Montana. We've been around for over 31 years, and I'm super excited to have our guests, Dr. Jane Smith and Mark Smith, who provide our Aspen Island beef. I've been buying it for 16 years, just a heads up, Mark. I don't know how long you've been in the store. I know it's probably been over 20 years.
Well, it hasn't been over 20, but it has been 19.
19. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So really
some of the first beef we ever sold once we came up here came at the sale to Montana Harvest, and it was a really fun thing to find out that a health food store didn't have certified organic grass-fed beef. And your predecessor, Denny, he was glad to get it in the store, and it's just gone ever since. You know, we do our very best to try to keep up with the demand. The demand is really high. The price is really reasonable. And you'll find, as a customer, I'm sure you'll find the flavor is better. And there's just so many good things about it. And the reviews that we get from people are just incredible. So come on into Montana Harvest and try it if you haven't.
And I just want to say happy 4th of July, by the way, to everybody. We do have shorter hours going on today. We are open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then I also want to announce our July Let's Stay Healthy seminar. We have Elaine Huang Fagan coming in July 15th at 5:30 p.m. And she's going to be talking about everyday mindfulness for greater energy, health, and well-being. And as always, for those that attend our seminar, get 10% off their entire purchase. You can RSVP in-store or call 406-252-6969. And that includes your guys' beef. We give a 10% off for the seminars when they come in. So make sure you RSVP, but I don't want to spend too much on announcements because I'm really excited about today's topic. I think it's really important for those that are customers of you guys, grass-fed beef, that this could potentially really affect your guys' ranch and us, but also us as humanity. I mean, mankind. Data centers are going to affect us, in more ways than we're even aware. So I think that this is really important to talk about.
Very important to talk about, and we're surely glad to be on the show talking about them. And we're going to be talking about doing things for the 4th of July. And one of those things you can think about doing at the 4th of July is participating in your government. And we have such great rights to be able to participate in our government. And so there has been a group of people. Well, let me set the stage first. There is a proposed 5,500 acre, 8.3 gigawatt data center that is basically on Jane and my front porch. It's just a little bit south of Broadview, which is just about 30 miles north of Billings. It's in Yellowstone County. And the way that this data center has come in like a freight train, without regulation, without any sort of ordinance, and has not really been a good community member in that they don't put out very much information on exactly how they want to proceed. They have already been sued by a local person for the way that they actually took over that land. Mm-hmm. And just so people know, 5,500 acres is more than twice the size of our ranch. It's a really big piece of land. And with that sort of energy use, they're going to have to cool all those computers that are running 24/7. And that is a big water issue. And so primarily for Jane and I, our problem would be that they won't disclose how they're going to cool that plant. They won't disclose where they're going to get the water, because a plant that big, the only thing you can really cool it with is water. And the gigantic size of it is what's alarming as well, because there's going to be a constant noise burden that is on people. Besides that, to generate 8.3 gigawatts of energy, that's the equivalent of 3 average size nuclear reactors in this country.
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
put together. How are they going to accomplish that? Partly, what we know is they have commitments from Northwest Power to give them 1 gig. Well, 1 gigabit, 1 gigabit, no, 1 gigawatt of energy is more than Northwest Energy's combined customer base in Montana for 1 year. In fact, it's about 50% larger, 1 gigawatt. And 760 megawatts is what Northwest Energy provides to customers like us. So there's that impact that's been unanswered. But they're talking about going to 8.3 gigawatts. So what do they want to do there? Well, from what we can understand, and it's not a lot, they're going to try to build an enormous natural-fired electric generation plant.
Natural gas.
Natural gas. What did I say?
Natural fired.
Oh, natural gas fired plant. Again, it takes even more water. Now, that would, if they could build a natural gas plant that large, they have to get the natural gas to do it. And they're proposing bringing a pipeline from God only knows where,
Laurel is what
a really big
there were
one.
some people at the community meeting that were saying they were going to create a natural gas plant in Laurel, which is already burdened and stressed in other ways. Because there were some people from Laurel at the meeting that
Oh,
were discussing.
there's already a natural gas plant in Laurel.
Yeah, but
they're going to
gonna
build
make
an additional
Yeah,
one.
make it bigger and run
Somewhere.
a pipeline all the way across from there up into the Acton Flats.
Which is
Oh
where
my
this
gosh.
is. So it's so enormous. And here's the problem that most all of us have, and that we'll get to the how you can participate in your government in just a second. But here's the problem. The company is called Quantica, and Quantica is not forthcoming with their information. They refuse to provide answers about water. They're just basically providing the minimum about power. But beyond that, they're not really participating in community. They're not consulting all of those people that actually live out on the Acton Flats, and that is a growing area, a suburb, if you will, of Billings. It's a closed system for water in that it's an internal draining basin as well, that some people might remember if they've been in Montana a long time, how that whole flat can fill up with water when the conditions are just right and we get a big winter. So there's all kinds of aggravating circumstances that they will not participate or be forthcoming with information that shows they're going to be community friendly, they're going to be environmental friendly, they're going to be water friendly, and power friendly, right? Electricity. Now, the biggest argument, and I just heard our governor speaking on the radio this morning, he's arguing that, they'll become the biggest property tax payers in the county. Well, that might be true, but if property taxes are raised because of this, that just allows the government to get bigger. We don't need more government. We need responsible government. Anyway, so that's...
And our lives don't circulate around the collection of property taxes. We're all out here as ranchers and farmers and people, because there were so many people at the meeting who are like, we moved out into this area because we wanted to get away from the issues of cities. And one of the biggest things, of course, is the water and what happens after they pump the water and they run it through their system. The state of the water coming out the other side. Beside the temperature, there's all sorts of chemicals that end up in the water. And like Mark said, they are not being forthcoming. When they release documents to Broadview, 90+% of the documents are redacted. It looks like a CIA document that gets released to the public that has blackout all over it. When they first came in, people in Broadview were telling us, it's just a solar farm. There's no big deal. And then it was only after that, and people had, mentally bought into this that they realize it's going to be this behemoth of a data center that creates so you've got the water issue and the temperature. I've been reading about other places in Georgia and other states where they already have big data centers. It raises the temperature in a 20-mile radius, and the temperature increase and the change to just the overall ecosystem, wildlife goes away. So there goes your hunting, there goes your general recreation. It also creates this sound, which they said initially was, around 40 to 60 decibels. And now people are measuring the decibel level outside of some of these bigger data centers back east. It can be 100 plus. And I was telling one of my sons the decibel level that was quoted at the last meeting we went to, which was around 160 decibels. He goes, well, that's the decibels that comes out of a rifle when you shoot it. And so, and you can hear that for miles and miles and miles. And people literally commit suicide. They can't leave their homes. The constant sound, and the sound, if you look it up online, it sounds like the middle of a horror movie where you have the violins way up high and there's that sort of quiet kind of screeching vibration when you have that tension. It's that 24/7. Then you have lights on all the time. So there's there's light pollution, there's sound pollution. When we went to the meeting, there was a bunch of people from the union that they've already contracted with a local union to build it. And they were like, well, it's all about the jobs. Well, excuse me, sweetheart, once you build that facility, you're gone and only 12 to 14 people are going to run the whole thing. There's not going to be this great job. And then the thing that nobody in the governor's office and in Quantica are even addressing is the ranchers who are literally across Highway 3 from it, are on the edge of it. What's going to happen to them? They really don't care. And it's just maddening that this kind of monstrosity, this kind of vile attack on landowner rights and the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is being completely brushed aside just for some property taxes. Well, guess what? Those of us who own the land, we shouldn't have property taxes anyway. That's a whole nother discussion. But it's vile. It's absolutely vile what is being proposed and being pushed as fast as they can.
Yeah. And the size of any natural gas generation plant also brings one other thing in the equation as well. And that's a small particulate air pollution, which they're showing now really impacts those people that are downwind directly from that natural gas plant. Now, we're taught that it's the cleanest way to go, and it is quite clean, but there's still those particulates that get away. So there's a whole host of things. And we as residents out here, and I would hope residents of all of Yellowstone County would agree that such a thing needs to have guidelines put around any such development if it's going to take place. Needs to have sort of a regulatory environment, an oversight environment by the county, because it's out in county open land, to make sure that it's planned and that all of these issues are dealt with, and all of the community certainly is treated fairly in how fast these people move and how large something can be, and all the resources and all the environmental stuff needs to have consideration, not just, well, it's open county and there's no regulation on it, we'll just go right through. So
yeah,
there's too many things. So that brings me, said all that, to say it is July 4th. And there is a way that you can participate in your government. Not us personally, but we're part of a group, a quite large group, that started a petition in the county of Yellowstone to actually put guardrails around this and put some structure behind how this thing can progress forward or not progress forward. And we need to do that. And so we have started a petition that's going to force Yellowstone County commissioners to consider all these things at the subject of the Yellowstone County voter. And so we started this petition. We're asking all Yellowstone County voters who think that we need to take a better look at how these data centers are rolling over the landscape to sign this petition. And we're going to be able to, thank you, Kimmy, with your cooperation, have petitions available for you to sign at Montana Harvest. I guess we can start that right after the July 4th holiday. And then we can have her personnel at the store be able to walk you through it's a simple signature, a simple date that you sign it. It's a simple, here's my address or my phone number. And then you just need to print your name, and that's all. And you will be counted. We need to get about 20,000 signatures. So it's a big daunting task. We got to do that before August 12th and get those turned in.
Also have to live in Yellowstone County.
You have to live and be registered to vote in Yellowstone County. So that's what we're proposing today. And that the reason being, of course, is that it has the ability, as one can imagine, with that much electric power being sent through basically banks of computers that need to be kept cool because they're using electricity. And as we know, electric motors and everything else heat up drastically. This plant has the potential to dry up our water sources on our ranch. And we're some 10 miles away from this data center. And where are they going to get that kind of water in the middle of Acton Flats? They have to go down for it. And here again, the company is not saying, they're saying, well, we're going to go to deep water aquifers. Well, that's true, but to get to the deep ones, you got to go through the shallow ones. And so that really raises the risk to the aquifers that we have here on our ranch.
Well, I just want to add to that because I have a neighbor that has been in part of the neighborhood ever since, it developed. And we bought it from the original owners, our home, and she put in a well. Well, the neighbor next door put in a well deeper, which dried up her well. So I just want to point that out of like, if they dig a well deeper, it could definitely, even if it's 10 miles away, affect your guys' water.
Oh, without a doubt.
This is just right next door.
Yeah, absolutely, really, especially in the scale they're talking about.
Yeah.
Millions of gallons a day, millions of gallons a day. And that's not an exaggeration. We don't know exactly how many millions, but we darn sure know there's millions. And then what the Dr. Jane brought up just a little bit ago is what happens to that water when it goes into one of those plants to cool it. It circulates through pipes, and it has all sorts of twists and turns and different properties inside of that cooling system that actually add to that water, because water dissolves solids, right? Harmful elements, including what? Nitrates,
PFAS,
PFAS,
microplastics,
all sorts of things. And then they have to discharge that so it can go back into the shallower water tables and contaminate them that way as well. So this company will not address how they're going to keep that from happening.
Do you want to talk about the Columbia River Valley, the guy that came over from Oregon?
Oh, we can.
The concentration of the...
Yeah. And why we know that this is a definite problem and a definite phenomenon that happens is over in the Columbia River Basin or Columbia River Valley over in Oregon. There were data centers that were put in, and then another big company came in there and put in a massive one. Well, the data centers that were there were doing okay, and they were pretty responsible. This bigger one came in and said, we don't care. And in fact, this gentleman that tells this story was a county commission in that county. And they truly didn't care. They just asked him, how much does it take for us to get your support? And this is a county commissioner. He can tell the story, but the fact is it got pushed through, and all of those residents in that general area where the water table was polluted started having things go wrong, like miscarriages, like
migraines,
severe headaches, like
cancer.
There's a cancer cluster over there now, and it's how easily These water tables can be contaminated. It's how easily they can be exploited. And so again, we're circulating this petition to get support behind the idea that we need to make these companies, if they're going to come in, be good community partners, be environmentally responsible, and be caring of the general community into which they're bringing it. Now, there is no way this company would be able to bring that in
Yeah, I was just
around
gonna say,
Billings, within Billings city limits, for no way.
I don't think they should be allowed to come in because up to this point and continuing to this point, they have not responded to the community pressure. And even I don't believe, even with legislation, that they're going to be cooperative. They're going to pay the fine as a cost of doing business. There has to be some huge pushback on that. The thing with the Oregon water was this county commissioner started going around and getting well water samples, nitrate levels, and they were off the chart. The health department would call him and say, we need to have a medical emergency because these are too high. And then he went around and started talking to people and find out how many miscarriages, how many, migraines, headache, cancer clusters. And they declared a medical emergency. And then the company came in and forced a recall and got him out of office to silence him. They don't play fair. They do what they want to do. And this is a good first step, but it has to be this constant pressure until it stops. Because the other thing was the first meeting we had in the spring, a hydrologist was there and he said, there's no way, if just looking at the water issue, there is no way this area can support a facility of this size. And that was given the water that they said they were going to use back then. And then it's gone up.
Oh, it's just gone up.
Yeah. So
Well,
If you go from 1 to 8, you're going to have 8 times the amount of water.
Yeah.
And they went from 1 gigawatt of energy to
Yeah.
8.3. That's 8 times the usage because they're going to presumably be putting in 8 times the computer capacity out there. Now they may mitigate some of that and use their 5,500 acres to put in some solar farm that only works during the day if the clouds are gone, or a wind mill that is got its own problems, but those are not necessarily going to be able to get them 8.3 gigawatts either. So there's just too many considerations that are left unaddressed and that raise the risk to us, to
all
our
our
water
neighbors.
table, and part of the reason why our beef is so good is because the water that we use comes out of a formation called the Eagle Sandstone. And the Eagle Sandstone does a pretty good job of filtering the water. And while it's got a pretty high pH, it comes out of the ground around 8. Shoot, Kimmy, you're selling 8.0 pH water in your store. But that 8.0 pH works really well for cattle's health as well as people's. And it could be contaminated and polluted in such ways that it would just make it no way. It could possibly even dry up our water sources. But drying it up's almost better than poisoning everybody with what is being put into their food. And that's part of why we do what we do, is for clean food.
well, and it should be illegal when you guys have worked so hard to
Mhm.
establish a certified organic ranch.
Mhm.
And then for somebody to come in and potentially pollute your land and take that certification away, because you're talking air pollution, light pollution, noise pollution, water pollution. And you guys have been established for 19 years there.
20.
And
This is
20
our
years.
20th year.
Yeah. And then you
Yeah.
that could potentially be all taken away because of a data center.
It surely could be. It surely could be. So, beef customers for Montana Harvest,
Yeah.
this is why when you come in, and hopefully we'll have some beef in the store for you to get. But when you come in, you can sign the petition after July 4th, and we'll collect those, and we're just going forward with it.
Yeah, because you should talk a little bit about the jumps and everything that you've had to go through to get certified.
Yeah, organic certification, in some ways, it's easier than most people think because they drum up an idea that it's very difficult, but it's not. There's a protocol, and in some ways it's difficult. And one of the difficult things that we have is that we have to be mindful of our boundaries on our ranch and what goes on just outside those boundaries. So what it takes to become certified organic is you have to remove all man-made fertilizers from any of your pastures and fields and hay fields that you're using to raise beef in. And that goes the same for crops as well. And so there has to be new practices that come into place, especially when it comes to dealing with weeds, that commercial ranchers, commercial farmers don't have to deal with. They just go get the latest chemical. They don't care, pour it on the land eats it up, the weeds go away, and they go on their merry way. So we have to eliminate first and foremost those commercial fertilizers and those commercial herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, parasitides. Those are all chemicals that commercial people are allowed to use on their animals, on their land. And folks, we know that whatever you use on your land ends up in the plants that come up out of the land in some form. In some cases, it's directly straight up into the food you're eating. In some cases, what they apply to those foods, I'm thinking of wheat. They can use Roundup to cure their wheat and make it go to a hardening stage faster so they can harvest it faster. Everything's faster. Everything's more efficient. And yeah, those chemicals, they do their job, but they do their job in an insidious way in people's health.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to eliminate all of those things. And then really the biggest part of all of the, being certified organic is having to come up with a system plan where you're talking about the whole of your operation and how you're going to treat that. In our case, we don't do anything but raise beef. So we don't have a lot of crops other than hay that we have to address. But you have to have a comprehensive plan on how you're dealing with all sorts of issues: animal health, environment, health, everything that has to do with the land, and what you put on the land is in that plan. And it's pretty extensive. And then lastly, we're subject to, and we've had 2 of these now in our 20 years, sort of pop quiz or surprise inspections where they come out and they take samples of hay or water or make sure that we're doing this or check that. And then annually, everybody gets inspected to make sure that they're putting their system plan into operation and that those chemicals are not being used. They're nowhere on the property, and therefore, it's the best system that we have. And that's what that little bug that's on packages that says USDA organic. Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's black and white. That's what that means. And it's a national policy that came into existence about 25 years ago, where it was a uniform way of measuring and governing how organic products can be sold to Americans with that moniker of certified organic. See, as certified organic, we're subject to regulations and rules, and we're just asking for that on these data centers who are not subject to these rules and regulations. They don't have a plan. They don't have to submit it. They just have to grease their way through their private property and do what they need to do to get all the permits they want, and there's no restrictions on that.
That's just mind-boggling to me, because
Totally.
here we have this ranch, certified organic, regenerative, practicing what's good for the land, the quality of air, the water, everything, pro-life, you could say, pro-environment. And then you have these data centers that are funded by the government? Are they funded by the government?
No, they're private. They're private
private?
corporations. And I don't know that they don't get
State money? I don't know.
So I don't know that they don't have some sort of subsidy in the background, because
Yeah,
the way these
subsidized
all came to be is our governor's energy, what do they call it? His energy
board or commission.
Yeah, his energy commission or something like that. And surprise, surprise, the CEO of Quantica is on this energy task force. That's what he called it. The governor's energy task force. And it was riddled with these CEOs that now are CEOs of data centers. And there wasn't any public or environmental person on that board. And they were strictly put in place to figure out how they can bring data centers and they've got over 100 of them planned for
For
Montana.
Montana. 100. They
That's
already have
insane.
4 in place.
So, like, one of these officials had been quoted as saying, if you don't like it, move north. Well, guess what? Even if we move north, there's going to be data centers north and south and east and west. So this is a Montana problem.
And I just want to say too, because some people hear about this and they're like, well, there's nothing we can do. They're just going to do this. They always do this to us, and they take the victim mentality. And I would tell people that are listening to this and getting overwhelmed that over half of the proposed data centers in the country have been stopped when communities, regardless of how big or small, come together. Because when voices are heard together, courage overcomes oppression. And that's really the biggest thing that's important to see. They had 70 planned down in Wyoming, and those got stopped already around Cheyenne and Laramie. And then I can't remember the other states, but I've been reading broadly about this before we found out this data center was coming. But there is a tide swinging in our country where people are getting together, their voices are being heard, and this kind of oppression and really it's like a corporate government combination that's really tyrannical. But they're getting pushed back and they're getting stopped. And so I would encourage the people that would say, what's the point? Well, the point is for your life, your livelihood, like in our situation, and for the people that come after you, what are you leaving behind? What are you going to live in while you're still alive? Don't take a victim mentality. Do it. Be courageous. See what happens. Cowardice, you know what happens. Courage, there's always something good that happens with courage.
And let me get on that bandwagon with Jane, because there is an example in our state of people banding together and changing what was going on in their community. And that came, if you remember, 5 and 6 years ago, there was this cryptocurrency mining explosion that went on around the country, and they were building these mining facilities for their cryptocurrency. Well, that happened over in Missoula. And in Missoula, this cryptocurrency mining operation was incredibly noisy and 24 hours a day, and all the things that we're talking about impacting Missoula. And the people in Missoula got together and said, City Council, you have to do something about this nuisance. Well, we're trying to do it before it actually happens, but they went ahead, and they're the only county in this state that has a comprehensive procedure or set of regulations or rules that governs how these things can progress or not progress. And so, yes, people can band together, just like Jane said, and do it. And I go back to my plea, and that is do something for the 4th of July. Make that resolution to say, yeah, I want to participate in my government. Let's go ahead and sign this petition and get it on the ballot, because that's all it is. I need to emphasize that this is just to put it on the ballot. And I would challenge people who are for data centers to go ahead and sign the petition as well. Put it on the ballot. Let's find out. We believe that the awareness of these data centers' misgivings are being more and more exposed to the public. People are understanding that there's bigger things to think about besides the temporary jobs and the property tax, but there's things that really matter, like our health, more than these little fleeting moments of benefit that they say they're going to give, particularly where they won't disclose exactly how they're going to deliver any of it, basically.
Or what they're going to take. Something else to add about the Missoula control. So when this data center in Missoula gets too loud, they can tell them you need to turn it down, and people are sleeping, so they can control the decibels. And something that is not discussed very much is, why do we need all these data centers? Why do they have to put them next to where people live? There's a lot of abandoned mines, coal mines, gold mines, all sorts of mines, underground caverns. Stick them down there because it's already cold. There's usually some sort of water, but if it's colder, you're not going to need as much. How about snowy places like the Arctic? How about what Elon Musk is doing? He's sending them into space. You don't need water because it's cold and there's plenty of energy coming from the sun. So there's a lot of alternatives to what they're doing. And someone said, and I haven't been able to confirm it, that China puts their data centers, their banks underwater, which is, it's a good step in the right direction, but then you're adding more pollution to the oceans. But this doesn't have to be this way, where corrupt governments, state governments, federal governments come in and tell citizenry, this is how it's going to be, this is what it's going to look like, and you just have to suck it up, buttercup, or move. Well, the people who don't have resources don't get to move, and they always suffer. And we saw that through the industrial boom in the 1900s. We saw it with the factories in the 70s. And now you have
the burning rivers back east.
Yeah.
right?
Schools built on
Lake-
industrial sludge, and the kids, you have cancer clusters of teachers and students.
Lake Erie dying
Yeah.
because of the pollution.
Yeah.
We know that. Well, this is a different form of pollution, but it's just as deadly
Yeah.
and just as serious.
So at what point do we as humanity say enough is enough? Industry is not going to create the rules that we have to live by. Humanity is going to say to industry, these are the rules by which you are going to comply. And that's really what this is all about. Turning the tide and telling people to have some courage and take a look. This, the very least, come by the store and read what it says, because Mark has a piece of paper that has the text on it, exactly what's going to be on the ballot.
Exactly. So there's that information that'll be available to them. And participate in your government. Call the county commissioners.
Yep. Call the
There's-
water board.
There's 3 new ones, 3 new county commissioners in Yellowstone County who seem to be listening. And if they heard a loud enough cry, why, it would definitely change their tune on, it's private land and we don't have any regulation on them, so we don't want to put any regulation on them, right? So be courageous, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let's band together. Let's get this on the ballot and just find out what Yellowstone County really wants to do.
Well, and you mentioned how much energy this data center is going to require. And we
Yeah.
know that anything that plugs into the wall, your refrigerator, your toaster, your whatever it may be, puts off an EMF frequency.
Yep.
What does something like a data center that requires, I don't even remember how much energy you said.
This one, 8.3 gigawatts.
Okay, yeah.
That's
What is that gonna
8,300 megawatts, right?
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
that going to do? And how is that related to like a 5G tower? I mean,
Yeah,
I'd like to
yeah.
know the relationship of like how much a 5G tower
Yeah.
puts off or
It's
energy
why-
is required.
And
And we know how
that-
detrimental they are to our health.
so we're just trying to be reasonable and asking this company to be forthcoming with those kind of studies
Yeah,
or call it all off. I mean, better yet would be to call it all off because they're coming on to this 5,500 acre parcel of land and saying we are kings and there's no regulations and we can do what we want. And that's true. And they are. But if they were to go get 5,500 acres, say in eastern Montana on public BLM ground, they would have to have an environmental impact statement. They would have to be forthcoming on all these things. And so this company, and I'm not against capitalism because Aspen Island Beef has to turn a profit and all companies do. But this company is taking total advantage of the lack of oversight by this state regarding these data centers and coming in and railroading this community and absolutely doing harm to it in the dark without disclosure and without any kind of cage that keeps them in bounds and in touch with what they're doing to the community.
And I'll add one thing too. I've talked to some people in Billings. They're like, well, it's up on the Acton Flats. There's not much out there. It's not really going to impact me. The biggest thing you're going to feel in Billings is your power bill going up, because
That well could happen.
anywhere they put a data center, people's power bills go up. They already have one in Butte, as if Butte didn't need any more insult to injury. And somebody came over at the spring meeting and was talking about how high her power bills have gone up and how they exceeded what they said they were going to do. And I don't know what company built that one. So then they put diesel generators in there, and the constant noise of the diesel generators and the particulate that comes off and the exhaust that comes off is just untenable. So
That's true, because if their power source were to fail or go offline, these data centers have this backup bank of diesel generators that fire up in the event of their power source being interrupted for any
They
reason
were
whatsoever.
using it to supplement their power source because they couldn't draw enough off the grid. it
Off the
appeared.
grid,
So
exactly.
it was
So
an addition.
And we all know we have grid issues. Now, this company will say, well, we got a whole gigawatt that Northwest Energy says is surplus. Well, is it really surplus? Or if it is surplus, then shouldn't our rates for Northwest Energy not be going up 100% over the last 10 years?
Yeah,
Just saying,
right?
Yeah.
just saying.
We
And now you
had,
got this enormous monstrosity that's
yeah,
that is the prospect of really, really harming people
Yeah.
on that daily basis.
I was talking to Northwest Energy because we had a frayed line. You could see it was after 20 years in the wind. It was, and they were fixing it. And I'm like, we keep getting these weird sort of interruptions that we didn't get 20 years ago. And he's like, well, that's the system being overloaded, and when it has to reroute energy, you'll have these brownouts. Well, we're getting more and more and more. And so can you imagine what's going to happen to brownouts and interruptions if they let this behemoth come through?
It sure could really impact people in real ways.
Yeah.
So how can you help? Yes, come on in to the store and sign the petition. Or there's an alternative. If you're out and about between Central Avenue and Broadwater, I should say, at 107 19th Street, a woman has got a sign up there where you can sign the petition as well. She has a sign in her yard.
Oh, awesome.
107 19th Street, is it north? But it's between Central and Broadwater on 19th at 107. There's got a lot of landscaping in her yard. She's got a sign that says, sign the petition here. Belinda is she's helped organize this as well. And then there's other ways you can get involved as well. And I'd just like to go through those. There's a Facebook group if you're a Facebooker. And that is NODCINYC@gmail.com is the Gmail. So that isn't the Facebook. Facebook at YC Ballot Initiative is the Facebook address. I just gave the Gmail address. And there's a website as well. And that's YVC1.org. YVC1.org. And you can go through and see all these things. You can get involved that way. You can volunteer. By the way, if you're out and about and you see people collecting signatures at these events like Symphony in the Park, I think they got Shakespeare in the Park tonight. If you see these people, these are all volunteers. They're not paid. And Montana has unfortunately been victimized by people who pay these signature collectors a handsome wage to go around, and they were downright rude in some cases. Well, these are going to all be volunteers. We're volunteers on this. And so it is a community grassroots project that is trying to gain steam, gather these 20,000 signatures and put it to the Yellowstone County people on the ballot to be able to actually govern what's going on with their community, their county, their state. So in the name of July 4th, let's participate in government.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate the fact that we have this freedom still. And let's make sure that these giant corporations that have no regard for boundaries, borders,
Community.
private property, community, environment, you name it. They don't have any regard for it. They prove it every day by their actions and their inactions and their lack of transparency. That's so it's enraging to think about how they're just trying to bully their way through this whole process.
Well, and honestly, I feel like this is an excellent way for the community to come together and stand up to these huge corporations and say, no, Montanans don't want this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've never heard a Montanan say that they want an AI center. I've only heard people say Montana land. Nope. Not a single inch of Montana land is worth giving up to a data center. That's what
Yeah.
I've heard from true Montanans. So
Well,
I
I'd say
believe we all have backbones and we can say no
Yes.
to this and
Yeah.
we can
And
come
that's it.
together. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so
Let's make-
just like
Make
Wyoming,
each other proud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Say no
just
to
like
this.
Wyoming, who came together and said, hell no,
Yeah.
we won't go.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
threw them out. Spokane, Washington also said 0 data centers in Spokane, Washington, right?
Yeah.
And so, it can happen. I think the state of Maine actually threw them out as well.
Yeah. 50%
So,
across the country.
Facebook again is YC Ballot Initiative. Email is nodci@gmail.com. And the website, yvc1.org. And you can get more information for that. You come into the store, you can read the initiative, you can sign, you can buy some beef, you can buy some of the great other products that are in there. Kimmy and the crew there, they're just outstanding. If you've never been into the store, what is it, 1701?
1710 Grand Avenue.
There you go, Montana Harvest, where
Your face is cut off.
there, like he says, like their slogan says, where people get healthy and
Yeah.
stay healthy and communicate with each other and find information and learn and grow and become, all they want to be and all they need to be. So come on in.
Yeah, and I definitely encourage people anybody that's listening to this to come in and sign the petition, or that address, was it 107 19th Street that a lady
right.
takes them at her house? Or
Between Central and Broadwater on 19th.
I think I know what place you're talking about too.
Yeah.
But then, come in the store, because if you are purchasing Aspen Island grass-fed beef and you like supporting a local ranch and supporting your community, this is by far the best way to help support your community, because this is going to affect all of us.
Yes.
Absolutely. Positively. And, it goes without saying that if they were to destroy our water resource here, and our water resource is very good for central Montana, as I've said. And if they destroy that, they basically destroy the ranch, and it would just do things to our family, to our community that make it irreparable and unable to continue, frankly.
Yeah. Now we have 3 generations of our family living on our ranch.
That's awesome.
And we don't want that to change.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah,
worked
so-
really hard.
Yep.
Well, and you guys do an excellent job at what you do. And
Yeah.
so people, I hope, and encourage people listening to this, if you are a registered voter in this county, Yellowstone
Yes.
County,
Yellowstone County.
come in and sign, because
Yeah.
this affects all of us.
Yeah. We
Da-
have
Data
neighbors.
centers aren't pro-life or natural habitat, because this will also affect nature and the
without a doubt.
habitats.
Oh,
Yeah.
The animals can't stand the noise either.
No.
And
They
we
leave.
we know there's scientific studies that talk about the impacts of noise on human health,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we know certainly chemicals affect that. We know all these unanswered questions can and will impact this community.
Yeah.
So get involved and help us raise these signatures, and then we'll see what happens in November. We got to have those gathered by August 12th and turned into the county
And
then-
verified.
and verified, and that they'll do anything and everything to try to discredit a signature if we start getting closer and closer to that goal. See, because they'll be turned in and processed as we go. We're not going to save them up and then dump them on them. The county has prescribed how they want to receive these and when they want to receive them. And so we have to comply so that all the signatures and everybody's voice, therefore, can really be heard and not
Yeah.
discounted into the wood chipper, so to speak. That's what it is. That's what these people are trying to do. They're trying to discount our voices
Yeah.
and throw our voices into the
just
wood
a-
chipper.
Graphic.
Well,
Ah.
of course it is, but that's what happens over time when people don't stand up. And they wake up one day and they're at the edge of the wood chipper.
Yeah. I will say that it was really encouraging, the meeting that we had in Broadview, a couple of weeks ago. And there was a lot of humanity there. You had people that leaned towards the blue direction, you had people that leaned towards the red direction, but ultimately it was humanity standing with humanity. And that is what, like you said at the beginning, Kimmy, that is what can happen with this topic, is that it's not political views anymore. It's what's best for humanity, and seeing people, supporting people, and finding what's common about being a person and standing on that, and unifying communities and unifying friendships again. So it's an opportunity. Every adversity is an opportunity to do something good and have a good outcome. And so I encourage people to look at it that way. Because we've run into people that are, they're like, oh, I use AI in my business. And, of course we need data centers. And, but then you start to talk to them about the impacts of what it does. And they're like, okay, yeah, we should regulate it. We should control it. So,
I mean, even the very future of data centers is in question. If we build these data centers and technology continues to progress, are they going to be obsolete in a few years? The answer really is yes. And we know that for a fact, that, for example, this NVIDIA chip that gets revised every so often is being sold into data centers, and the thing is already obsolete even as it's being installed. In other words, there's a better one that's coming back of it, smaller, uses less energy, has fewer impacts, therefore, right? Things like that. And they're just going down this road as quickly as they can and trying to shove these things into our face and into our lives without the proper consideration. That's what we want. We want the ballot initiative to be put in front of Yellowstone County.
Talk about the companies that are already rehiring people that you read about.
Oh yeah. And in fact, AI is proving right now to not be as effective as many companies had hoped. The cost to use it are outstripping by far their gains that they thought they were going to get by laying people off. One of the best examples of that is the company Uber. Through the first 4 months of the year, they already blew through their AI budget at Uber. They blew through their budget and are wondering how come their costs are going up while using AI at the same time. They're having people inside these companies that have had big layoffs. The people that are left are being burdened further and further by having to actually check the results from AI and make sure it's doing this or doing that. It's not perfected. And we do not need to become the guinea pigs of them trying to perfect something that is influencing and impacting our health and our communities. We don't need to participate in that. That's what this petition is about.
They're starting to rehire people that they fired because they said AI would replace them. Yeah. 89%. Is it 89%, 85%?
We're out of time though, you guys.
Oh,
so
okay.
I want to thank everybody for joining us and wish everybody a happy 4th of July. And please be sure to stop in and sign the petition for this because, we want to see it on the ballot in November, like you said, Mark.
Yep.
Because it affects everyone. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back on tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Let's Stay Healthy radio show, sponsored and brought to you by Montana Harvest Natural Food Store in Billings, Montana.